do you recall back the very first night or the very first day that you got through your FCLPs and then you go out to the ship and you
Right.
actually land on the ship? What was that feeling? How was that?
Are you talking about the T2 or in
No,
the
F-14.
oh, in the F-14?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, you
it was a
built
little
up.
bit weird, because the nice thing in the T2 and the A4 was that you would fly out to the ship, right? You'd fly out there and you'd circle overhead and you'd kind of get all comfy in your airplane and then you'd come down and try and land. And in the F-14, we did that, but then you would get a couple traps in the daytime and then you would park the airplane and get out and then go downstairs and eat a hamburger and then wait for it to get dark. And then you'd sit around until like midnight. You've already been up. You haven't been able to sleep because trust me,
Nervous.
when you go to the carrier, you're scared, not, not, not scared like, crawling up in a little ball and crying, but you're definitely ready. You need to be on your game. So you don't
Right.
sleep a lot. And then you're up till like midnight and then they go, hey, okay, now it's your turn, go strap on this airplane. And you go up on this flight deck and it's just insanity up there. I mean, it's noisy and there's airplanes moving around and there's people grabbing you and they're like, it's not your world. You've never been a part of that world, so it's
Right.
new. And some guy grabs you by the shoulder and says, don't even, just follow me, I got you. And he drags you to the airplane and you just see a ladder in front of you and you climb up inside your F-14 and close the canopy and the Rio goes ICS check and you go loud and clear. The engines are already started. You just have to start, the one engine's running, you just start the other one and strap in and the guy's like, you ready? And you're like, okay. And then you taxi the catapult and it's time for your first night cat shot. It happens like that. And you're like, you're not even warmed up. You don't even have your night vision yet.
Right.
And then you taxi up there and I mean, the pucker factor is just, I don't know if I can express how high it is, and you get hooked up to that catapult and you're taxiing up and they get you hooked up and then your lights are turned off, right, on the flight deck, and you run the power up and you do a control check and there's a bunch of guys outside and they're saying, okay, your controls are good. The catapult's already in tension. It's ready to fire. So you're in a loaded gun.
Right.
And then the guy goes, okay, he gives you afterburner signal, or you might be doing a basic engine shot, but almost everything in the A that I flew was a burner shot. So he gives you this pumping signal that means go to zone 5. So you go into afterburner, and then as soon as it gets into zone 5 and everything looks good, you flip the lights on, and that's the signal for the guy to shoot you. And then they look around, they check the deck, and then a guy, points down at the deck, and then some other guy standing off to the side reaches down and pushes a button, and you go back in time a million years because the acceleration peels your face off.
Right.
And you're just into a black hole. And all I was worried about is losing a motor. So I go down the cat stroke staring at the engine instruments. And then as soon as the airplane comes off the cat with that big oomph, you go straight to the attitude gyro and make sure that you're seeing, 5 degrees nose up or whatever. And then you check VSI and altimeter and you cross-checking to make sure the airplane's climbing away from the water, because you have zero outside visual reference. It is just a black hole and you know that you're 60 feet off the water. It is really frightening experience.
And did you ever have a situation, a cold cat shot or something kind of weird?
I had something worse, buddy.
What'd you have? Did you crap your pants? That's the question everyone wants to know.
I wish I could say that, but I know guys that did actually. But that's weird when you get into an airplane and it smells like poop. You're like, somebody pooped in here. It happens. So we got these new fancy Air Force helmets, they're super light, they're beautiful. And our squadron, somehow the CO stole a bunch of them, and we were the first squadron on the East Coast to get them, and we thought we were awesome dudes. Well, they only had night visors for us. They didn't have any clear day ones. I'm sorry. They only had day visors, the sunglass ones. They didn't have the clear night ones. So you'd have this leather thing you'd put over it to keep from scratching it, banging into things. And when you had it in your locker, well, so at night you'd just leave the thing up. You would just not use a visor.
Right.
So I go out to the airplane and I pre-flight it and we hop in and the F-14 had this really interesting thing that nobody really talks about. When the F-14 would taxi to the cat, the guy who was taxiing you would taxi up, and before he would hook you up, he would go like this. He would slap his knee, and that meant to kneel the airplane. And there was a little switch by the landing gear handle that you push down, and it would compress the oleo strut, so the nose would actually drop down, and that would make the catapult launch bar flip out from the nose gear. So the airplane would actually go down the cat stroke a few degrees nose down.
Oh, wow.
And what would happen was when it hit the end of the stroke and the catapult launch bar came out, when the airplane came off, that oleo strut would uncompress, and it was a nitrogen charge inside there, and it would go boing. And that's what would give the attitude, the takeoff attitude to the airplane. It would bounce the nose up. So here I am in this night shot, and everything's wonderful, and cat zone 5, and it's dark as 3 feet up a cow's butt, and I'm scared to death, and I turn on my lights and I'm ready to go, and all I'm thinking is engine failure or electrical failure. What am I going to do? And I go down the stroke, and then right when I hit the end, when that oleo stroke popped, they had overcharged it or something. I mean, the airplane just went bang like that. So it snapped my head back. Well, when it did, that visor came down, and it had that piece of leather on it, and it just went snap down.
You're like, I can't see.
So here I come off the catapult, and I'm just blind. It's just completely black. I don't see anything. And it happened like in an instant. Like my head went boink like that, and I went, oh my God, I lost electrical power. And I go, oh, fudge. And I'm like, what is happening? And I'm like, no, I'm afraid to touch the controls. And then I can hear my Rio in the ICS go, what? And I heard my own voice. And I'm like, I can hear myself. I have to have electrical power. And then I suddenly realized it's my visor. And I was ready to eject, dude. And I reach up and I slap my visor up, and I'm like, oh, and now I could see, and then I fly away. And then my poor Rio, this guy's in the back seat, and he's like, what happened? And I'm like, oh, nothing.
Did you ever tell him? Did you ever tell him? We came this close.
I was like, oh my God, you're not gonna believe this. This stupid visor came down and blocked my vision. It was just like Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, where he is wearing a helmet and he's trying to do the lightsaber thing. I mean, I had nothing.
Did you tell the guys that so they didn't have the same situation?
Oh yeah, I've never been afraid to laugh at myself. At least I hope I'm never afraid to do that. You can't let ego get in the way of those kind of lessons learned. I mean, it's a funny thing, but it was a really serious thing. I mean, I could have pulled the handle, and that would have been a shame to lose a $40 million airplane over a stupid visor cover, right?
Oh God, yeah. Could you imagine?
Yeah, and sure nobody probably ever would have figured it out. They would have been like, "What?" It would have been really interesting to read that accident report. Because if I had ejected, usually the helmet comes off, and at least the visor would have peeled off. Who the heck knows?
Right.
And it would have been like, "What happened?" I said, "I don't know. Everything failed. It all went black, and I just shelled out."
And to the Rio, what happened? I don't know. I was looking at the ball. It looked good. I was looking
at the Rio's like, everything looks fine.